Nancy Mace is currently running for the governor of South Carolina, so she is hosting town halls all over the state. Naturally, she's talking about all of the good things that she has accomplished for the people of South Carolina as one of their representatives in the House. But when she was asked specifically about one of her so-called accomplishments, she immediately deflected by attacking the interviewer, saying she was a raging Democrat and a raging leftist and that she should treat women better.
You're very confused. And you're a raging Democrat, so raging leftist with that kind of questioning. And I would say as a woman, you might want to think about how you view other women and how you treat other women, the way that you question them, because women are going to lead this country off the brink, and conservative women. The first female president of this country is going to be a conservative woman, not some liberal like you.
Okay, again, just a question about a bill, whether you voted for it or not, and what you were touting.
This is literally the job of a member of Congress. You might want to look up what a member of Congress does, and maybe read the Constitution next time before asking me such a question.
Okay.
5 times over.
Just looking for clarification in the question.
You clearly need it.
Okay.
Pick up a Constitution and read it.
So let's back up. What was it that triggered that heated response from Mace? Well, during her town hall, she was touting the infrastructure bill passed by Congress during the Biden administration that gave money to states to repair things like roads and bridges. So that sounds like a good thing, right? Mace mentioned that the bill was one of her successes, as it was something that the people of South Carolina would be happy about, and she was a voting member of Congress when it passed. Unfortunately, she actually voted against the bill. The reporter asked Mace if she thought it was okay for her to claim the bill as one of the things that she did for her constituents when in fact she voted against it. Her explanation was that she wasn't against infrastructure funding in general, she was against the way the money was being appropriated.
You think it's okay for politicians who
the federal government
to take credit for...
It's literally our job to make sure that our states get the appropriations that they need when the money is assigned.
But even when you vote against
and grant funding.
Anybody, even when they vote against it.
I vote against almost every spending bill I've ever had before me because of the wasteful spending. This government has spent money on transgender surgeries for kids. It spent money on putting men in women's prisons. We've spent over $26 million at the NIH to castrate mice and test them on a date rape drug. So I, of course, would vote against a bill that did something outrageous like that. But when there's money being appropriated by the federal government, it is literally our job to make sure that we help organizations, government entities, state and local, get those appropriations by supporting them with letters of support. And that's what my office says. That's literally part of the job of being a member of Congress. So maybe you're confused.
And I get to a certain extent making the argument that you didn't like the bill in its entirety, so you voted against it in an effort to maybe amend it. But then she says that South Carolina should get comparable funding to states like North Carolina and California. And giving the benefit of the doubt, maybe she meant proportionally speaking, but that's not really what she said. Both of those states, especially California, are way bigger than South Carolina. South Carolinian cities themselves aren't even that big. So why would South Carolina get a comparable amount of funding to what California gets? But the reporter pressed on with her original question, can Mace honestly take credit for a bill that she voted against? It was at that point that she attacked the reporter for being a raging leftist and told her to read the Constitution. I don't think being a leftist, raging, or otherwise has much to do with a reporter asking questions about a congressperson's voting record, but depending on how big this story gets, Mace's response sort of echoes the Streisand effect, right? Her inordinate response to the reporter and that bizarre tangent that she went on only draws more attention to the fact that yes, she is trying to claim victory for something she voted against. She could have just continued on with her initial line of argument that votes in Congress aren't as simple as they seem. That is a fair point. Congress people in Congress, they are there to negotiate terms of bills and fight for their constituents. Sure, a lot of times Congress people will vote against something that sounds good on the surface or by the name of the bill because the details of the bill are not actually satisfactory. Then it becomes a talking point that this congressperson voted against this seemingly good thing. This impacts members of both parties, by the way. That is a thing that we can actually have a discussion around. And Mace did sort of attempt to do that initially, though I don't personally think her reasonings as to why she voted against the infrastructure bill were as sound as she seemed to think that they were. Part of this is because we actually know why she voted against the bill. Many House Republicans voted against the infrastructure bill because it was Biden's bill. They voted against everything he tried to do because they vote as a bloc now. That is the new normal, right? It wasn't always like this. I just want to remind people, but in the last 10 years or so, Congress has filled up with representatives who can no longer think for themselves, right? They just vote right along party lines, and if they don't, they're attacked for being traitors. The partisanship in this country, again from both sides, doesn't actually help anything, but in the case of this infrastructure bill, Republicans knew that it would likely pass, so they were able to vote against it, preserving their own voting records so that they could maintain that they did not vote for a Democrat-backed bill or in alignment with the Democrats while still securing funds for their constituents. I'm sure they also know that many of their Republican constituents will just hear that their state received all this money in federal aid and just assume that it was because of, not in spite of, their Republican leaders. And I keep saying they, not she, because we've covered this story before, sort of. Lauren Boebert did this exact same thing last year, and she, just like this, got called out for it. When she was running her weirdo congressional campaign for a different district in Colorado than the one she had been representing, just so she could keep a seat in Congress, she bragged on social media that she, quote, secured over $51.4 million for the South Bridge. Of course, that funding came from Biden's infrastructure bill. Of course, Boebert voted against it. She said she was thrilled to hear about nearly $30 million in cost savings in addition, and that my support has helped make this project a reality. In response, Pete Buttigieg posted on X, Congresswoman, in what way do you believe that your support helped this project? We chose it because it's a good project and funded it using President Biden's infrastructure package, which you voted against. And in typical Republican fashion, Boebert responded with an ad hominem and homophobic attack against Buttigieg before writing, only 13 rhinos in the House voted for your Green New Deal non-infrastructure bill you are touting that wastes hundreds of millions on climate change instead of roads and bridges. And infrastructure grants have been doled out by administrations on both sides for decades, so don't act like you are the sole provider of this funding. To her last point, it was kind of irrelevant because the funding did actually come from the Rural Surface Transportation Grant Program, which in December 2023, under the Biden administration, pledged to spend $645.3 million on projects improving the quality of rural roads and bridges. But Boebert still managed to win her election and keep a seat in Congress, so maybe Nancy Mace will have similar luck in her gubernatorial run. South Carolina's got some pretty interesting politics right now and some pretty interesting leaders, and as we head into the 2026 midterms, even though they are over a year away and I'm already getting way too many text messages from people asking for money, I will say that they're great at grabbing headlines. It's a tricky position to be in for someone who does work like this because you want to call attention to the hypocrisy, but that's also how Trump got elected the first time, just by grabbing headlines, among other things. All right, that's it for me. If you got anything out of this, please like the video and subscribe to the channel for more. Thanks.